Public art is for everyone. The people who in the past or even currently feel like art isn't for them, it's a chance encounter and it's an exciting thing. It is really for each person that comes across it.
Working for Ben is an interesting mix of physical work and mental work. Just inherently, I will always be thinking about one of Ben's ideas in terms of how it will be made.
This is basically my private studio away from the fabrication space for drawing, model making, any computer work I have to do. Obviously nice and quiet, small. This is the original preliminary concept rendering. So it doesn't really describe how it's made or the detail of the surface or anything like that, but really just the impression of the space, the illusion that there's this gargantuan slab of wood that spans floor to ceiling in this two-story space. I'm just completely fascinated by the natural world and natural patterns and what that evokes and all of the metaphors embedded in that. I make abstract drawings that are kind of process-based that unintentionally mirror or mimic natural growth patterns, which can be pretty amazing sometimes. You would never see that in nature. That's the result of human tools, intersecting this wood and revealing it in a way that it would not otherwise be revealed.
Well, I think there were a lot of things about Ben's proposal that were very exciting, just visually. It really did take on that aspect of organic and the materiality. And then when you read more into it, it really talked about the history of this region. It talked about the idea of branching out and working with the College of Forestry and the history of the timber industry.
It pays homage a bit to the fact that we are a huge natural state with beautiful forests and woods. So I really appreciated that Ben's proposal was thoughtful, not just in terms of the piece he's proposing, but the material and what he's using for it.
The range of ways you can shape wood is pretty astonishing. Wood is, for good or bad, it's very malleable. There's a huge range of densities and weight. I mean, it's kind of just like very hard clay.
I knew right away I wanted to tell some kind of story about the history of wood and timber. There was a time when we were clearing land, cutting down the largest trees we could find, but now that equation is sort of flipped.
CLT, or cross-laminated timber, is really quite simply dimension lumber, so think like 2x6 that you'd find at Home Depot, glued in layers. The ability to glue wood together into larger engineered wood panels allows us an alternative to conventional building materials like reinforced concrete or steel, which are pretty carbon and energy intensive. Oregon has a very long and rich history in forestry. Historically, if you go far back enough, there have been some really large and impressive buildings that have been made out of wood. But the 20th century has really been predominated by concrete and steel, especially in terms of larger buildings, think like mid-rise and high-rise building.
On the one hand, you have what appears to be a colossal slab of wood from some monstrous ancient tree, but then if you get closer, you start to understand that it's laminated thousands of pieces of wood from many, many different trees that each have their own story and have been harvested, put into a building, reclaimed, milled down, etc.
The idea of reclaimed wood, especially in this region, I think is really exciting because it really talks about the renewability of wood as a structural element, an artistic element, and it really does branch out as well through the innovation that's going on with the College of Forestry.
So I think the story of engineered wood products and these sort of composite layering that Butler's doing in this piece speaks a lot to what the industry and Oregon as a whole is moving towards in terms of forestry practices, which is basically using science and technology to bring those maybe smaller or lesser quality trees or pieces of wood together to produce very large, strong, structurally predictable pieces of wood that we can build really large, very intricate, amazing buildings with.
I always want my work to be like bold and direct up front, and then also have a lot of layers of detail, physical detail, and also ideas and concepts. I always assume people are going to touch the work. I touch it myself a lot.
I work with a great crew of people, and getting to do installations is really interesting. I love driving across the country and seeing new places and working with other professionals.
Inevitably, when we get to this point in installation, I'm thinking about my original concept and the very first moment when I did a little mock-up before I had any sense of how it would be built.
Really, what this represents is sort of what is supposed to be inspirational and aspirational in terms of what we can do with wood.
So I've thought a lot about, like, what does it mean to have a tree as a piece of art next to a welcome center? So I think a lot about, you know, planting the seeds of a tree that grows up big and tall and huge is much like, you know, planting the seeds as you start your journey to come to OSU.
Well, wood in an outdoor sculpture, again, is a surprise. It's attracting a lot of people to want to have their picture taken, want to come up and touch it. And there's something tactile about wood that just really makes you want to be a part of it.
When I think about people interacting with the work, I just hope there's some sense of awe, even just a fraction of like what I feel when I'm trying to evoke a range of responses. You know, my fascination with the natural world and awe of the natural world. If I can translate just some of that, then it's successful.